This is our last day at Iberostar Selection Bavaro and Coral Bavaro. We have eaten our way through these resorts, and in this video, we're going to be showing you what the food is really like, starting with our very first lunch after we checked in.
On this trip, we booked Coral Bavaro, which is an exclusive section of the larger Iberostar Selection Bavaro property. And because of this, we're going to be able to share experiences from the Iberostar Selection restaurants, as well as the exclusive restaurants only available to Coral Bavaro guests. And of course, we'll also be covering the buffets. But first, we do want to catch you up on our check-in process. Our transfer dropped us off at the Iberostar Selection Bavaro lobby. From there, we hopped on a quick shuttle to the Coral Bavaro exclusive lobby. The staff greeted us with a welcome drink and got us checked in. Since our room wasn't quite ready, we decided to hang out at the Coral Level lobby bar, have a few drinks, and catch up on a bit of work. Once we were hungry, we walked to a beachfront restaurant to have lunch.
We just checked into the resort, and while we wait for our room to be ready, we're here at El Faro, which is the exclusive restaurant for Coral Level guests. Now, our first glances of both the view and the buffet have been pretty impressive, so let's go show you what they got.
El Faro offered a beachside buffet for both breakfast and lunch.
So we just got done with our first lunch on the resort, and I would say it exceeded our expectations. While the buffet didn't have a ton of variety, what it did have was really good quality food, and you could get things like ribeyes, salmon, and even sea bass grilled to order.
Now, the first thing I gotta talk about is the views. Whether you're seated outside or inside, the majority of the seats have a really great view of the beach and the Caribbean. While we did like almost everything we tried on the buffet today, our favorites were the stewed beef, the grilled ribeye, the heart of palm, the raw tuna, the grilled sea bass, and the fresh fruit. Now, we both agreed that this was perhaps the best buffet that we've ever had at an all-inclusive resort. It ranks right up there with the Lobasan Unique Buffet, and we'd give the food a 10. We are tempted to give it a 10 out of 10 overall, but we do have to knock it down 1 point just because it was quite hot in the dining area, and we were both sweating by the time we wrapped up our meals, so we're gonna give it a 9.
After lunch, our villa was ready, so we went to check it out and film our room tour. We really enjoyed this room during our stay, and if you want to see the full tour, be sure to check out our resort tour episode after this one. Once we were done, we grabbed a coffee at the Coral Lobby Bar and spent some time at the exclusive Coral Level pools. We found the first pool to be quite relaxing and in the middle of the Coral Level area, and the second one was an infinity pool right on the beach. After sunset, we decided to explore a bit of the Iberostar Selection property before heading to dinner. We walked through the Orchid Garden and the main lobby before heading back to the Coral area for dinner. We ended up eating at Salt and Soul, which is located right above the El Faro restaurant and is only available to Coral Level guests. A reservation was not required and we were seated right away.
We just arrived at Salt and Soul for dinner, which is the beachfront restaurant in the Coral Level area that specializes in seafood. And our waiter just came out with this, which is easily the most unique bread presentation we've ever had at a Dominican resort. It's Dominican fried bread with some sort of dipping sauce. We are really excited to try this.
Perfect.
Oh,
Perfect time.
nice.
Yes.
So, that's not the best dirty martini I've ever had, but it probably is the best one I've ever had in the Dominican Republic. The texture is a little bit weird. It's way chewier than I was expecting, but the flavor is actually really good.
So for appetizers, Skylar went with the fresh catch ceviche with passion fruit, and I went with the tableside tuna tartare. A staff member actually came out and made the tuna tartare right in front of us. Yeah, that tastes very fresh and it's very delicious. There's a little bit of spice in there too.
So two of my absolute favorite things are ceviche and passion fruit, but I've never seen passion fruit ceviche before, so I could not be more excited to try this. Wow. And that's every bit as good as I thought it'd be. The seafood tastes extremely fresh. There's a little bit of sweet and a lot of tartness from the passion fruit and the vinegar. It's great. So I ordered the seafood casserole. I was kind of expecting more of like a traditional American casserole situation with like some breading, but this is straight seafood. I'm totally fine with it though because it looks amazing. The shrimp is delicious, but there's lobster, squid, and some other seafood in there as well, so we'll let you know how the rest of it is too.
So every night here there are chef specials. Tonight there was red snapper, tuna, and salmon, and our waiter recommended the salmon, so that's what I got. Oh, the flavor of that salmon is so good and it's cooked perfectly.
So the shrimp, squid, and mussels in this seafood casserole were fantastic, but the highlight has to be this lobster. They give you some really big chunks of it, and anytime you can get lobster without paying extra at an all-inclusive resort, you have to do it. I gotta give my meal a 10 out of 10.
So we just got done with our first dinner here on the resort, and if this is the first video you're seeing of our recent Dominican trip, we've actually stayed at 3 different resorts on this trip. The first one was a budget option, the second one was rated somewhere in the middle, and this one is rated the highest, and we are already seeing why. Dinner tonight was fantastic, and this is going to be the easiest 10 out of 10 that we're giving because the service was excellent, the staff were friendly. We love the coral reef decor, that it was located right on the beach, and there was a cool ocean breeze coming through. Now we ended up skipping out on dessert because we wanted to make sure that we would have time to grab a drink and head to the beach party. So our time at the beach party got cut short due to rain, so we're grabbing an umbrella and gonna go get some dessert.
Skylar had this cocktail for dessert, but unfortunately, all the sweet treats available earlier in the day had already been taken away for the evening, so I ended up having chocolate from our room for dessert. The next morning, we started off by having breakfast at the main buffet, which is near the Selection Bavaro lobby. Next, we'll take some time to show you what it offered before sharing our overall thoughts on the experience.
So I'd say this buffet is on the smaller side of the buffets we've eaten at in the Dominican Republic at all-inclusive resorts, but this one had good variety and we thought the quality was also very good. The buffet is located inside in air conditioning, but the seating area is outside. Now they do have a lot of fans and you can choose to sit right next to the water and watch the fish and the birds, but that also means that as soon as you get up, the birds are eating your food.
Our favorite items from this buffet were the skirt steak, the fresh croissants with guava sauce, and the fresh fruits and juices. Now I agree with Jamie that this buffet is solid but not spectacular. I'd probably give it an 8. She said she'd give it a 7, so that lands us at a 7.5.
After breakfast, we spent some time watching the ducks and then began filming our ultimate resort tour. We took breaks in the shade and really enjoyed the vegetation and animals on the property. Along the way, we visited the coffee shop, did a little shopping, and even enjoyed some drinks before heading back to the main buffet for lunch.
As we were walking past the main buffet, we noticed that it had just opened up for lunch, so we decided to take a break from filming our resort tour to have lunch and show you what they have today.
these ducks have been staring at Jamie watching her eat her ice cream cone. She's not sharing. Sorry, guys. Look, I don't got no food up here. Find some other people.
You're giving us some sad duck eyes.
We were both really impressed with the presentation of the main buffet today, but a few of the items that looked really good ended up being just average. That being said, there were a couple of items we both thought were amazing, including the grilled mussels and the freshly made ceviche, and I think it's safe to say that Jamie really enjoyed her ice cream and a waffle cone too.
After lunch, we had a few more bird visitors before we got back to filming the resort tour, which took us through some of the beautiful paths on the property, including a path through this orchid garden. We were able to cool down in the coral lobby and even grab a chocolate treat before heading out to film at the beach bar. By the time we reached this giant fish, we were nearly done filming the tour and it was time to get ready for dinner.
So we had planned on dining at the steakhouse tonight, but when we got there, we were told that there was an hour-long wait. So we did decide to add our names to the wait list, and we went over to the Japanese restaurant for sushi because we were told that you did not need reservations to eat at the sushi bar. Thankfully, that did turn out to be true, but unfortunately, we weren't actually able to order our own sushi. They just gave us the same plate of sushi that they give to the people that eat at the hibachi grill. Now, we're definitely not going to tell you that was the best sushi we've ever had, but it was pretty good for Dominican sushi. Unfortunately, we had to pretty much scarf down our sushi because as soon as it arrived, we got a text message saying that our table at the steakhouse was ready. Fortunately, we did make it there in time, and we'll let Jamie tell you about that experience.
Now, even though we had to rush because our table was ready about 40 minutes earlier than we expected, we weren't going to complain because that meant we got to try the steakhouse. Now, that experience was a bit of a mixed bag. Our waitress did recommend the Caesar salad for an appetizer, and that was excellent. For entrees, we ordered the prime rib and a ribeye. The prime rib is supposed to be carved tableside, but when our entrees arrived, we both were given ribeyes without any explanation. Now, it wasn't that big of a deal because we do both like ribeyes, and they were cooked how we ordered them. They were pretty flavorful and tender, but it would have been nice to be informed if they were out of prime rib, so that way we could have tried a different entree.
Now, our prior experiences eating steak in the Dominican have been a little bit hit or miss, but since the steak on the lunch buffet was so good at this resort, we had some pretty high hopes for the steakhouse, and we were actually considering giving it an 8, but since we didn't quite get what we ordered and it was really warm inside, we decided to give it a 7 instead.
Once we were done with dinner, we decided to stay up late enough to go to the nightclub. It opened at 11 and was pretty empty when we arrived. However, we loved the airplane theme, the spacious bars, the lit up dance floor, and the swings nearby. We had a feeling that this club often gets pretty packed, but we didn't stay up late enough to find out. We enjoyed walking back to the coral level area to get a good night's sleep.
We just finished up our first breakfast at El Faro, and it's only about 10 in the morning, but it's already extremely hot, so we decided to recap this experience down on the beach where there's a nice Caribbean breeze. Now, the selection on this breakfast buffet wasn't anywhere close to the selection on the main buffet, and honestly, the quality was probably about the same, but we did both find some things that we really enjoyed. I especially liked the mofongo mash, the Italian sausage, and the soursop yogurt.
I love that they had dragon fruit and lychee. The lychee was so juicy and flavorful. I also enjoyed my crepe and cappuccino. They had a sauce station where I put guava sauce on the crepe and vanilla syrup in the cappuccino, and both of those took them to the next level. Now, even though the variety wasn't near as much as the main buffet, we really enjoyed the ambiance. It was a much smaller setting, and we had a gorgeous view of the water, so overall we're giving the experience an 8. We're gonna spend the rest of our morning hanging out at the beach and checking out some of the other pools. We'll meet back up with you for lunch.
The beach next to the coral level was quite peaceful and picturesque with plenty of covered loungers, but we couldn't resist taking a dip in the water. Next, we spent some time at the exclusive pool in the middle of the coral level area. While it was quite relaxing, we were curious about the pool on the other side of the property. We found it to be more lively with a fully stocked pool bar where we enjoyed some drinks and complimentary yucca chips. Then it was time to visit the hydrotherapy spa. Another perk of booking Coral Level is that it includes 2 whole hours in the spa. We took a dip in several indoor pools of various temperatures, tried out the bucket, and spent some time in the outdoor pool before making our way back to El Faro for lunch.
So it took us a while to build up an appetite for lunch today, and as a result we showed up at the buffet like 15 minutes or so before it was about to close, which many of you probably know is pretty much the worst time to show up for a buffet because the food just isn't going to be as fresh. But we still did find some things we really enjoyed. They had this make your own poke bowl station that we absolutely loved, and I was really surprised by this one, but I actually loved the stewed goat. I got it just to try it. I kind of thought I wasn't going to enjoy it at all, but it was really tender and very flavorful.
My favorite item on the buffet was easily the poke bowl station. They had so many ingredients to choose from. Skylar had octopus and shrimp. I went with salmon, but you could also have tuna. My second favorite thing had to be that ice cream station because they had these teeny tiny waffle cones where all you needed was 1 scoop of ice cream to fill it up and have your fix for the day.
We decided to dine out on the patio today because there was a nice breeze and it was actually quite a bit more comfortable than eating inside, and the view was even better. So we would give the atmosphere today a 10, we'd give the food an 8, and that averages out to a 9.
After lunch, we made our way to the main pool on the property, where we found a little stand giving out coconuts. So of course we had to get one. Skylar ended up making a friend, and we spent the afternoon enjoying the pool before getting ready for our last dinner at the resort.
It is our third night at the resort, and we're kind of in the same predicament we were in last night. We went to the Mediterranean restaurant and they told us they have a really long list and they don't even know if they're going to have a table for us by the time the restaurant closes. Now, when we checked into this resort, we were told that we could go to any of the specialty restaurants any nights they were open as long as we arrived before 9:15. Now, initially we were excited that we didn't have to make reservations for most of these restaurants, but we're now seeing the negative side because they don't guarantee that you will have a table even if you arrive before 9:15. So we did end up being able to eat at the Mediterranean restaurant. We were one of the very last tables to be seated. Now, before we share more about that experience, we want to talk about the logistics of eating at these specialty restaurants here. Now, even though you might be told at check-in that you can go to any restaurant as long as you're there before 9:15, what we found is that you have to be seated by 9:15. And to be seated by 9:15, that could mean that you may need to show up by 8:30, by 8 o'clock. It really just depends how busy the restaurant is. So our recommendation is that if there's a restaurant you really want to eat at, then get there at least by 7:30. But you also have to be prepared to potentially eat at that time as well, because if they're not busy, then they might seat you right away. The good thing is they do have a system that when there is a wait, they'll take your phone number and then they'll send you a message through WhatsApp when your table is ready.
As far as the actual dining experience at the Greek restaurant goes, it started off really well. We've only been seated at the Greek restaurant for a few minutes now, and I already have my wine glass filled. We've got our water glasses filled, and they brought out this tray of appetizers. We were trying to decide what appetizer we wanted to order, but they just brought out this tray that has pretty much all of them on it, so now we don't have to think about that. So after sampling all of the appetizers, it was a bit of a mixed bag. Some were better than others, but we both agreed that the calamari was our favorite. For our entrees, we went with the beef Slovaki and the chef's special tableside sea bass. We were both pretty impressed by the presentation of the sea bass, and we did both enjoy the flavor as well. We also enjoyed the flavor of the beef Slovaki, but it was pretty dried out, so we probably wouldn't order that one again. So overall, the meal was solid. The service was great, but honestly, the food was probably our least favorite of the 3 specialty restaurants that we went to during this stay, until we got to dessert, where they had a really impressive amount of options laid out buffet style. Now, some of those options were good, some of them were weird, but one of them was amazing, and that was this cream puff type pastry that was stuffed with a pistachio cream. We both agreed that that was our favorite dessert that we tried on the entire resort, and it lifted our overall rating for the Greek restaurant up to an 8.
Now this ended up being the most expensive resort of the 3 that we stayed at during this trip. It ended up being around $130 per person per night, but we still think it was a bargain at that price point for this premium of an experience. Now if you do book Coral Level, you don't actually have to leave the Coral Level to dine at any of the restaurants on the larger property, but we decided to because we wanted to show you some of the other options available. Now to be honest, we had our best dining experiences right here in the Coral Level, so we wouldn't blame you one bit if you decided to have all of your meals here. Now unfortunately, tomorrow we have to leave all of this behind us and go back to Florida. But the good news is, if you're not ready to leave this resort yet, you don't have to, because you can watch our ultimate tour video by clicking here right now. Thanks for watching.